It started as an ordinary Saturday afternoon. I was helping my best friend, Jason, fix up his old bike in the driveway when his mom, Mrs. Carter, stepped outside. She was holding a folder under her arm, her eyes scanning the street as if she was checking to make sure no one was watching. "Hey," she called to me, her voice low but urgent. "Can you give me a hand with something upstairs? It's important." I hesitated. Mrs. Carter was a real estate agent, always juggling house showings and client calls. I figured she just needed help moving some boxes or maybe lifting something heavy. But there was something in her tone, almost like a secret. Jason looked at me, confused. "What's going on?" Mrs. Carter smiled faintly but didn't answer him. Instead, she glanced at me again and said, "It's about a property I haven't shown anyone yet. A private listing. But I think you need to see it first." I followed her inside. The air in the house was still, quiet, almost tense. She led me up the stairs to a room I'd never been in before. The door had always been kept shut. When she unlocked it and pushed it open, my stomach tightened. What I saw inside was nothing like I expected. The room was dim, with the blinds pulled halfway down. Sunlight cut in at sharp angles, casting long stripes across the floor. At first glance, it didn't look like any kind of listing I'd ever seen. No desk with papers, no computer, no "for sale" signs. Instead, there was a large corkboard covered in pinned photographs, newspaper clippings, and scribbled notes. The pictures weren't of houses. They were of people. Mrs. Carter set the folder on the table and opened it, flipping through pages filled with property records, maps, and handwritten annotations. "This," she said quietly, "isn't just a house. It's part of something bigger. Something that's been in my family for decades." I glanced over the papers, addresses I recognized from around town, some circled in red, others crossed out entirely. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because," she said, lowering her voice even more, "I trust you. And because Jason can't know." "Not yet." That last part made my chest tighten. Why keep something this important from her own son? Before I could ask more, she reached under the table and pulled out an old brass key on a chain. It looked ancient, heavy, and worn smooth by years of use. "This is the key to the real property," she whispered. "And if you agree to help me, you'll see what's behind its door." Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway, Jason's voice calling out, "Mom. What are you guys doing up here?" Mrs. Carter's eyes locked on mine. "Don't say a word." "Not yet." Mrs. Carter quickly slid the folder shut and slipped the brass key into her pocket just as Jason stepped into the doorway. He looked between us, clearly suspicious. "What's going on?" "You're acting weird." Mrs. Carter smiled lightly, too casually. "Just showing your friend some old files for a property I'm reviewing. Nothing exciting." Jason raised an eyebrow but didn't press it. "All right, well, I'm going to grab a snack." "You coming?" he asked me. "In a minute," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. As soon as he left, Mrs. Carter turned back to me. "We can't talk here. Meet me tomorrow morning at the coffee shop on 5th Street. 9 a.m. sharp. And whatever you do, don't tell Jason." I nodded, though my head was spinning with questions. Why the secrecy? Why me? The next morning, I arrived at the cafe early. Mrs. Carter was already there, sipping tea in a corner booth with the brass key on the table between us. She slid an envelope across to me. Inside was a faded black and white photograph of a huge Victorian-style house, tall windows, a wraparound porch, and ivy climbing up its walls. Something about it felt eerie. "This," she said, tapping the picture, "is the real, secret listing. But it's not for sale, at least, not in the way you think." I frowned. "Then what is it?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice until it was almost a whisper. "It's where the truth about my family, and yours, is hidden. I stared at her, unsure if I'd heard correctly. My family? What does this house have to do with me? Mrs. Carter didn't answer right away. She glanced toward the window, as if making sure no one was listening, then pushed the brass key into my hand. You'll understand when we get there. But you have to promise me, whatever you see, you can't tell anyone until I say it's safe. The weight of the key felt heavier than it should, as if it carried more than just metal. We drove in silence for nearly 20 minutes, leaving the familiar streets behind. Eventually, the smooth pavement turned into a narrow, bumpy road surrounded by tall oak trees. Then, through the branches, I saw it, the Victorian house from the photograph. It looked even larger in person, towering over the wild grass and untamed gardens. The paint was peeling, and some of the shutters hung crooked, but the place had an undeniable presence, almost like it was watching us. Mrs. Carter parked at the edge of the long driveway. This house hasn't been lived in for over 50 years, she said quietly. But everything inside has been waiting. We walked up the creaking porch steps. The front door was massive, with an ornate lock that looked exactly like it had been made for the key I was holding. My hand trembled slightly as I slid it in and turned it. The door opened with a slow, groaning sound. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and something older, like forgotten memories. Sunlight spilled in through stained glass windows, scattering colors across the floor. And there, in the center of the entryway, was a single table with an old wooden box sitting on top. It had my last name carved into it. My breath caught in my throat. I'd never seen this box before, but the sight of my last name etched into its surface made my skin prickle. Mrs. Carter stepped back, letting me approach it alone. Go ahead, she said softly. It's yours. I ran my fingers over the carved letters. The wood was dark, polished smooth by time, and the small brass latch clicked easily open. Inside, I found a stack of yellowed envelopes tied together with a thin piece of twine, along with a leather-bound journal that looked like it could fall apart if I turned the pages too quickly. I untied the bundle and pulled out the first envelope. On the front, in neat cursive, was written, "For my grandson, when the time is right." My hands trembled. This is from my grandfather," I whispered. Mrs. Carter nodded. "And your grandfather was my father's best friend. They built something together, something they wanted to keep hidden until someone they trusted could take over." I glanced up at her. Take over what? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she picked up the journal and handed it to me. Start with this. It'll explain everything. The first page was dated over 60 years ago, and the opening line made my pulse race. If you are reading this, you've inherited the responsibility of guarding what's buried beneath the house. I looked at Mrs. Carter in shock. Buried? Beneath here? She nodded slowly. And we're going to see it, right now. Mrs. Carter led me through the echoing hallway, our footsteps sounding unnervingly loud against the creaking floorboards. We stopped in front of a door at the far end. It was smaller than the others, with paint peeling around the frame. This used to be the servants' entrance to the cellar, she explained. But your grandfather, he reinforced it. I gripped the brass key again, but she shook her head. Not this time. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a different key, longer, rusted, and twisted in an odd shape. With a heavy click, the door unlocked. A steep staircase led downward into darkness. The air grew colder as we descended, and a faint, metallic smell lingered in the damp. At the bottom was a stone-walled cellar, empty except for a large section of the floor covered by an old rug. Mrs. Carter motioned for me to help her roll it back, and together we revealed a square wooden hatch with thick iron hinges. This, she said, her voice echoing slightly, is where they kept it safe. I knelt down, heart pounding, and pulled the hatch open. A rush of stale air came up, along with a faint glimmer from below. We climbed down a short ladder, and when my feet hit the ground, I froze. Against the far wall stood a massive iron chest, its surface engraved with strange, swirling patterns. In the center of the lock was a small slot, the exact size of the brass key she had given me yesterday. I turned to her. "You mean to tell me, this is what's been hidden for 50 years?" She nodded. "And when you open it, you'll finally understand why our families have been connected all this time." I slid the key in, took a deep breath, and turned it. The lock clicked. The chest creaked open. And what I saw inside left me speechless. Inside the chest was not gold, not jewels, not anything I'd imagined. It was filled with ledgers, thick, leather-bound books stacked neatly beside rows of old photographs, deeds, and official-looking documents sealed with wax. I carefully picked up one of the ledgers. The cover read, "The Carter-Hayes Agreement." My last name was Hayes. My pulse quickened. Flipping it open, I found pages upon pages of handwritten notes, financial records, and signatures from people I'd only ever heard about in family stories. The numbers didn't make sense at first: massive sums of money, property transfers, and coded messages in the margins. "These," Mrs. Carter said quietly, "are the records of what your grandfather and my father built together, and why they never wanted it public." I frowned. What was it? Some kind of business? Her eyes met mine, and there was both pride and worry in her expression. It was more than that. It was a network, a way to protect people in our community from losing everything during the hard times. They pooled money, bought properties under the radar, and kept families from being pushed out of their homes. It was their life's work. I flipped to the back of one ledger and found a list of addresses, most of them circled in red. Some I recognized from around town. "These places, they're still standing." She nodded. "And now, they're yours to protect. That's why I brought you here. It's not just a secret listing, it's an inheritance of responsibility." I stared down at the chest, overwhelmed. "And Jason?" I asked. Her voice softened. "He's not ready to know yet. But one day, you'll have to tell him." Just then, a floorboard creaked above us. Heavy footsteps moved across the old wood. Mrs. Carter's eyes went wide. "We're not supposed to have visitors here. Quick, close the chest." I slammed the lid of the chest shut, the metallic clang echoing through the cellar. Mrs. Carter yanked the rug back over the hatch just as the footsteps grew louder. Whoever was upstairs was moving slowly, deliberately, like they were searching for something. We froze at the bottom of the cellar stairs, listening. A man's voice called out, low but sharp, "I know you're here, Evelyn." My stomach tightened. Evelyn was Mrs. Carter's first name. Her face went pale. She whispered, "That's Harold Whitmore. He's been trying to get his hands on these records for years." "Who is he?" I whispered back. She didn't take her eyes off the stairs. "A developer. The kind who'll tear down everything our family's built if he finds this place. He's already taken 3 properties from the list." The footsteps came closer. The sound of a floorboard groaning directly above us made my heart race. Mrs. Carter motioned for me to stay quiet as she slowly climbed the cellar stairs, pausing halfway. "Harold," she called out, her voice calm but firm, "you're trespassing." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "You always did have a knack for hiding things, Evelyn. But this time, I'm walking out with them." I could feel the tension building like a storm. I reached into my pocket, feeling the brass key still warm in my hand. If Harold found the chest, everything our families worked for would be gone. Mrs. Carter stepped fully into the hallway above, her voice sharper now. "You'll leave right now, or you'll regret it." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then came the sound of a drawer opening, and something being pulled out. "Evelyn," Harold said slowly, "I think I just found your little secret." I gripped the cellar railing, my knuckles white. I couldn't see Harold from where I stood, but I could hear the smugness in his voice. Mrs. Carter's tone stayed steady. "Whatever you think you found, it's not yours." "Oh, I think it is," Harold replied, his footsteps moving toward the back of the house. "You've been hiding something for decades, Evelyn. And now," a pause. "Now I've got proof." I could hear paper rustling. He was going through the folder she'd shown me yesterday. My stomach twisted. Those documents didn't reveal the chest's location, but they were enough to make him dangerous. Mrs. Carter's eyes met mine from the top of the stairs. She gave a sharp hand signal, "Stay hidden." Then her voice changed, louder, more commanding. "Put those down, Harold. Right now." He laughed. "Or what?" I heard the sound of heavy boots moving closer to the stairs. My pulse jumped. If he came down here, it would take him seconds to spot the rug covering the hatch. Thinking fast, I grabbed one of the old iron tools from the cellar wall, something that looked like a pry bar, and held it tight. Just as Harold's shadow appeared at the top step, Mrs. Carter stepped directly in front of him, blocking his way. "Last warning," she said. Harold sneered. "You won't stop me." That's when I made my move. I kicked the side of a loose support beam, sending a loud crack echoing through the cellar. Dust rained from the ceiling. Harold jumped back, startled. "What was that?" Mrs. Carter seized the moment. "This house is unstable," she said quickly. "You stay down here too long, and you might not get out." For a second, he hesitated. Then I heard his boots retreat toward the front door. A moment later, it slammed shut. Mrs. Carter hurried back down. "He's not done. He'll be back, and next time, he won't come alone." Mrs. Carter paced the cellar, her hands clenched. "We can't leave it here. Harold knows too much now." I glanced at the heavy iron chest. "But this thing must weigh 100 pounds. Where would we even take it?" She stopped pacing and looked at me. "Somewhere he'll never think to look, your family's cabin by the lake." I blinked. "That place hasn't been used in years. The roof leaks, and half the dock is falling apart." "Exactly," she said. "It's perfect. Harold's the type who only searches places that look valuable. He'll never imagine the truth is hiding in a rundown cabin." We got to work fast. Together, we lifted the chest, the metal groaning as it left the floor. My arms burned with the effort, but adrenaline pushed me forward. We carried it up the cellar steps and into the hallway, pausing to listen, no sign of Harold. Outside, the late afternoon light was fading. Mrs. Carter's SUV was parked just beyond the porch. We loaded the chest into the back, covering it with an old tarp and several boxes to make it look like junk. As she started the engine, she glanced at me. "We have to be careful. If Harold's been watching us, he might follow." Sure enough, as we pulled out onto the main road, I caught sight of a dark sedan parked a block away. Its headlights flicked on a second later. Mrs. Carter's jaw tightened. "He's tailing us." I turned to her. "Then how do we lose him?" She gave a thin smile. "We don't drive straight to the cabin. We lead him somewhere he won't want to be." She took a sudden left turn onto a narrow road that plunged into the thick woods. The sedan followed. "Hold on," she said, pressing the gas. "This is about to get interesting." Branches scraped against the SUV as Mrs. Carter tore down the narrow dirt road. The headlights bounced wildly with every rut and pothole, but she didn't slow down. Behind us, the dark sedan swerved to keep up, its engine growling through the trees. "Is this road even on the map?" I shouted over the roar of the tires. "Not anymore," she replied, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. "It was part of an old logging trail. If Harold doesn't know where it ends, he'll have to guess." The path twisted sharply, and Mrs. Carter swerved just in time to avoid a fallen branch. The sedan skidded, its tires spitting gravel, but it stayed behind us. "He's not giving up," I said. "That's fine," she said, glancing at me with a flicker of determination. "We're almost at the fork." Sure enough, a split in the road appeared ahead. She took the left path without hesitation, the SUV bumping hard over exposed roots. The sedan followed, but then the trees opened up to reveal a wide, shallow stream cutting across the trail. Mrs. Carter hit the gas and splashed through, water spraying across the windshield. On the other side, she floored it again, disappearing deeper into the woods. When I looked back, the sedan had stopped at the edge of the water. Harold sat there, his headlights reflecting off the stream, clearly debating whether to follow. Mrs. Carter didn't slow down until we reached a clearing with an old wooden bridge. She parked and turned off the engine, both of us listening for any sign of pursuit. Nothing. She exhaled, relief softening her features. We lost him, for now. But this just bought us time, not safety. I nodded. Then let's get to the cabin before he tries again. We started driving toward the lake, the chest still rattling faintly in the back. But just as the water came into view, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You can't hide it forever. Mrs. Carter's eyes flicked to the screen when she saw the message. He's not giving up. He's closer than we think. We didn't speak again until the cabin came into view, a weathered structure half hidden by tall pines, its dock leaning tiredly over the still lake. She pulled the SUV around the back so the chest wouldn't be visible from the road. The air smelled of damp wood and pine needles as we hauled the chest inside. The cabin's floorboards groaned under its weight. Where do we put it? I asked. Mrs. Carter scanned the small space, then pointed to a trapdoor near the fireplace. My father built a hidden crawl space there. It's dry and impossible to spot unless you already know it's there. We pried open the trapdoor, revealing a narrow compartment beneath the floor. Carefully, we lowered the chest inside, covering it with a tarp before sealing the wood back in place. When we finished, she sank into a chair, finally letting out the breath she'd been holding. It's safe, for now. I sat across from her, the weight of everything pressing on me. How long can we keep this up? Harold's not going to stop. Her gaze met mine, steady and unwavering. That's why I chose you. This isn't just my fight anymore, it's yours too. One day, you'll have to take my place, and you'll decide who to trust with the truth. We locked up the cabin, and as we walked to the SUV, I glanced back at the weathered walls, knowing what was hidden beneath them. The lake rippled softly in the fading light, as if guarding the secret with us. For now, Harold didn't know where it was. But somewhere out there, he was planning his next move. And I had the uneasy feeling, the real fight hadn't even begun.